The James Bond series has some of the most iconic movie villains of all time, whether they're obsessed with cats, whether they're obsessed with gold, or whether they're planning to submerge the world underwater. They always stand out. We are still basing our villains on the James Bond villains in lots of movies. So it's time to talk about the top 10, in my opinion, James Bond villains. Be sure to let me know your top 10 Bond villains in the comments. And number 10, it is La Chiffre from Casino Royale, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Yes, Hannibal as a Bond villain. Enough said. I was never someone who really watched Casino Royale a lot. I love it now. But I only watched it after I'd watched the TV series Hannibal, which of course has Mads as Hannibal. So all I ever see in this movie is James Bond versus Hannibal. This villain's like a math wizard. He's really smart. He's really intense. And you really get some real cold iciness from him, which this actor is known for. He's just got such a scary stare and a confident stare and a sick pleasure. And also, he was the one who got revenge on James Bond's nads for all those husbands and jealous blokes who James Bond stole their girls. He attacked Bond's nads, he beat them up. Number 9 on the list is Frank Sanchez, played by Robert Davi from License to Kill. Now, License to Kill was a more gritty, down-to-earth, intense James Bond movie where Bond was now battling drug dealers as opposed to insane megalomaniacs. So it was Bond facing a more down-to-earth, gritty, intense enemy. Very much License to Kill was trying to mirror a lot of the action movies at the time, where it's just this horrible drug boss, you know, who's just got no morals, and you just want to see the hero beat the crap out of him. There's also a seediness to him and a real sense of no regret and a real sense of dirty dealings going on. And he tries to kill James Bond's best friend in the film, so it becomes like a revenge movie. So again, it gives it this real dark energy, this real gritty action movie energy that makes License to Kill stand out. And Frank Sanchez is part of that. You know, he's horrible to women, he beats up his own men, he tries to kill people at the drop of a hat, he does everything just to keep his drugs empire going. He's almost like a Tony Montana like gangster, where just it's gone to his head so much that he now just lives in this bubble of evil and he believes his own hype. He was certainly a villain who gave the Bond movies a new dimension, and there really hasn't been a James Bond villain like him since, so he needs to be in the top 10. Number 8 is Elliot Carver from Tomorrow Never Dies, played by Jonathan Pryce. He's underrated, guys. Tomorrow Never Dies is an underrated James Bond movie. I think it's great. I really, really do. I think Pierce Brosnan did 2 great James Bond movies, GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. Everyone likes to say it was only GoldenEye. Tomorrow Never Dies is great as well. Rewatch it. It's a really, really great fast-paced action movie. And Jonathan Pryce is an underrated Bond villain. You know, he's over the top, he's in your face, but he's an interesting idea. And the idea was kind of ahead of its time. People looked at it as goofy back here, that, you know, that insane guy at the helm of the media would try and manipulate events to create his profit and narrative, and just, you know, it doesn't seem that out of the question now, does it? Like, given how corrupt the news media is. It was like a laughed at idea here, but it wouldn't be that unbelievable in today's day and age. Jonathan Pryce is often hilarious in the role. He'll just have these outbursts, these kind of Nicolas Cage-esque outbursts out of nowhere in the movie. But he's also very dark and sinister and weird and odd and, you know, almost sympathetic in a way, because he's just so far down this corrupted mindset. You almost pity him, you know. But again, he's just a really, really fun, crazy James Bond villain, and he should be on this list. No, he wouldn't be on many people's list. I think he's underrated. Number 7 is Dr. No. It all started here, guys. It all started with Dr. No, played by Joseph Wiseman. This is a performance that changed it all. From this point onwards, supervillains were all the rage, and supervillains mimicked this kind of soft-spoken, dangerous mastermind. You know, he's such a disturbing maniac, but he speaks so calmly. He speaks so affectionately, so charming. You know, very much the beginning of villains who will take you in and talk to you and have a, you know, nice conversation with you before they're getting ready to kill you. His speech patterns of Dr. No, just his approach to the performance, that cold, calm, calculated stare, that unique look of the character. Just the way he talks to James Bond eating dinner very much was replicated by many of the other villains and in many other action movies. The villain will sit and eat dinner with you as he tells you his evil plan. And, you know, Dr. No is just iconic, so he had to be on the list because he is one of the greats of the James Bond villains, because he was the beginning of this idea of this insane world-conquering madman. Number 6 is Max Zorin from A View to a Kill, played by Christopher Walken. This performance is basically Christopher Walken going bananas, and I love it. Who wouldn't love that? It's Christopher Walken. Wind him up and let him go. He's basically an out-of-control rich kid in this, and it's a fascinating depiction of, you know, self-important people born into wealth who are just bored, so they get into corruption. He very much seems that's his character. He just got bored, he's got all this money, he just got corrupted and went nuts. Christopher Walken is memorable, he's arrogant, he's disturbing, he's everything Christopher Walken ever should be, and you know, he just makes these snidey comments to Bond that makes you think that this rich kid believes he's better than anyone in the world. And again, he's brought into his own hype, as all the best Bond villains have. He's very uncompromising, because in one scene, one of the most memorable in the film, which Roger Moore wanted taken out, he guns down all his men. Just fucking guns them down. Just bloody guns them down. Christopher Walken with a machine gun, gunning down men, laughing. It's just, you don't get more memorable than that in James Bond cinema than Christopher Walken wiping out his own henchmen. Nutter. Number 5 on the list is Alec Trevelyan, 006, played by Sean Bean in Goldeneye. This might be the most personal and emotional and powerful back and forth and relationship between James Bond and a villain of all time, because of course these guys used to be friends, and Alec Trevelyan went the other way. He realised in his mind the futile nature of just being for Queen and country and risking your life for people who don't really care if you live and die, in his opinion. The corruption, you know, he just didn't believe it anymore, and he just went down a route which you can kind of see how he rationalised it, because he's seen pain, he's seen all the things Bond has, but Bond still manages to stay on that straight and narrow. But Trevelyan's like a very much an example of what would happen if Bond maybe just had a bad day and just went, screw it, I've had enough of M, I've had enough of MI6. And it's about a broken friendship, and Sean Bean and Pierce Brosnan really have this great chemistry between each other of two blokes who came up together. They were good friends. You can see there is still affection there. Even in the moments where Alec Trevelyan's trying to kill Bond, you'll still see that kind of glimmer in his eye that he has respect for James Bond. He just wishes he could see his point of view. And because he doesn't, he's gonna bloody kill him. It was more real and down to earth, this relationship. And I think Sean Bean's a fantastic performance in this, because he gets gradually more insane. You know, it starts off with him like, oh yeah, I can see, wow, he would have gone down this route. And then eventually just doing such horrible stuff, he's just given himself over to this new mindset. Sean Bean is spiteful, he's aggressive, he's got charisma, and Sean Bean could have been James Bond. Sean Bean's a great actor who could have been James Bond. So we get Sean Bean, but we get him as an evil James Bond. And that's what makes Alec Trevelyan so high up in the list. He's an evil James Bond. It's Bond versus Bond, essentially.
What's the matter, James? No glib remark? No pithy comeback?
Why?
Hilarious question. Particularly from you. Did you ever ask why? Why we toppled all those dictators, undermined all those regimes, only to come home. Well done, good job, but sorry, old boy. Everything you risked your life and limb for has changed.
Number 4 on the list is Scaramanga from The Man with the Golden Gun, played by Christopher Lee. It's Christopher Lee, bitches. Christopher Lee. One of the most iconic actors of all time. One of the most actors you would ever want to play a Bond villain. Played a Bond villain, The Man with the Golden Gun. Now, The Man with the Golden Gun, I like the movie a lot. I think it's flawed. I think it could have been better. But I do like the film. And I do absolutely love Christopher Lee's performance in it. It's exactly how you'd expect him to play it. He brings forth all the great elements of Christopher Lee as an actor. That understated charm, that ego, that presence, that charisma, that soft-spoken style. But also this just electric, nervous energy. that you always have whenever you watch Christopher Lee. He's just a magnetic actor. And of course he's got the golden gun in this. His Scaramanga is one of the most memorable villains because he wields the golden gun, which is so unique. And such a great idea to have this villain who has a trademark gun with a golden bullet, which he uses to kill people all the time and leave his mark. And in this film he's singled out James Bond for assassination. And I feel like that's one of the problems with the actual film, because it starts off really great, like Bond has been targeted by an assassin. Then it just kind of goes into a normal James Bond film when you think it's going to be a bit more like Bond has met his ultimate match, nemesis. Bond is being hunted. Then it just kind of turns into Bond hunting Scaramanga, and you never really feel like Bond is under threat from Scaramanga. You know, once Christopher Lee and Roger Moore meet up, it's a wonderful pairing of two fantastic, unbelievable screen presences, and I love it. I love those scenes where they come up against each other. Christopher Lee was a larger-than-life villain as Scaramanga. He felt special, he felt believable. The film could have been better, but I just feel like any moment where Scaramanga and James Bond are on screen together is one of the greatest Bond and his villain pairings of all time, because they bounce off each other, they intimidate each other, they respect each other, but essentially they're out to kill each other.
To us, Mr. Bond, we are the best.
There's a useful four-letter word, and you're full of it. When I kill, it's on the specific orders of my government. And those I kill are themselves killers.
Oh, come, Mr. Bond, you disappoint me. You get as much fulfillment out of killing as I do, so why don't you admit it?
I admit killing you would be a pleasure.
You should have done that when you first saw me. But then, of course, the English don't consider it sporting to kill in cold blood, do they?
Don't count on that.
Number 3 is Blofeld, played by many actors. He's in many James Bond films. My favourite portrayal of Blofeld would be Donald Pleasance in You Only Live Twice, and I really like Telly Savalas in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. One of the performances was pretty bad, which was Charles Gray as Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever. I thought that was a pretty bad portrayal of Blofeld. But Blofeld is, in a way, the ultimate Bond villain. He's the one who made famous that image of the hand stroking the cat. He is essentially been tracking Bond throughout all of his adventures. He's in the background watching, always stroking that cat. And you always see his hands. You know, you never saw his face until You Only Live Twice, where Donald Pleasance has such a memorable look, you know, as Blofeld. Strangely enough, his look kind of changes every time you see him, but that's like true to the Blofeld of the books, because apparently in the books, which I haven't read, he did change his appearance loads, so I guess it kind of goes along with it. Donald Pleasance specifically in You Only Live Twice was a fascinating performance. Just that once you see him, you're never going to forget him. You know, it's such a unique looking villain, and it was such a big deal to finally see him come out and say that iconic line.
James Bond, allow me to introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
I just feel like the history that Bond has with Blofeld, I mean, obviously as well, he's played by Christoph Waltz in the new films. So he is the villain who kind of spreads across the entirety of the Bond series. He is the Bond villain who most casts his shadow on the entire James Bond series. I think Donald Pleasance was like disturbing and odd and bizarre and mysterious. On Her Majesty's Secret Service brought us a Blofeld with charm and charisma and swagger in Telly Savalas, who's a fantastic actor in many 60s films. And, you know, I like Christoph Waltz's portrayal as well. What I like about Blofeld is he's kind of like James Bond. Every time he's recast, someone else brings something different to the role, but essentially stays true to who Blofeld is, who is just this absolute sadistic maniac who wants James Bond dead. And number 2 is Tananga, played by Yaphet Kotto in Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die is a fantastic James Bond film, and it was James Bond meets voodoo. James Bond meets blaxploitation, which was huge at the time. It's a crazy kind of lot of ingredients for a James Bond film, but it really, really works. it's unlike any other Bond film. He's taking on new villains, he's going to new areas, he's seeing a new world, and you know, it never got repeated again. It was a very moment in time movie. And Yaphet Kotto plays the main villain, Tananga, and he is really, really disturbing in this. Really, really cold and horrible and icy, and really such an ego about him, and such wanting to just invoke control over everything around him, believing in all this voodoo magic, believing in the power he has over the Jane Seymour in the film, who plays Solitaire. He has controlled her. She's read his cards since she was a little girl. And he's just trying to create this voodoo world around him that protects him. He's extremely superstitious. He's extremely wrapped up in a terrifying world, and very theatrical. And he has theatrical henchmen all around him. And he just thinks he can just invoke this reign of terror on this island that he's on for the rest of the time and control it.
You have been a relatively minor nuisance, in fact. But this gun, I find it particularly fascinating. What is it?
A shotgun, naturally, with compressed gas pellets.
I think Yaphet Kotto is a great actor. He pops up in a lot of movies now and again. Great character actor. You know, he's very, very good at stealing the show. And I think he does steal the show in this movie. He also has the most memorable supervillain death in James Bond history. He literally blows the fuck up. I'm not even joking. He blows the fuck up.
Where's Tananga?
Well, he always did have an inflated opinion of himself.
And number one, the greatest James Bond supervillain of all time, in my opinion. How could it be anyone else? It is Goldfinger, played by Gert Frobe. Gert Frobe was Goldfinger. You know, there's so much to say about the performance. It's such an interesting and layered performance, because if you look at Gert Frobe as an actor, he doesn't look like anything special. He looks like a normal, kind of middle-aged dad, to be honest. But the second he opens his mouth, he becomes a larger-than-life cinema presence. You know, he is such a good actor. He's responsible for possibly the two most memorable moments in James Bond history, which is, of course, when he takes his obsession to murderous lengths and kills one of Bond's conquests by painting her in bloody gold. Or, of course, that iconic scene, that iconic line, which every movie villain wants to recreate, the coolness of this line, the delivery of this line, the wittiness of this line. You know, every supervillain wants to have this line on their resume.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
I love it. It's just such a short line as well, but it's literally what happens in every action film, you know, and it's still one of the best. Still one of the best action movie villain one-liners of all time, and Gert Frobe just delivered it so well. You know, such a spiteful performance, such a ego-filled performance. You know, he brings so much bloated ego to Goldfinger. And, you know, Goldfinger is also, he's a grounded villain, but he's also an over-the-top villain. He's crazy, he's insane, but he also seems like a real person in moments. I think one of the strengths of Goldfinger and the movie overall is that everyone in there is just such a magnetic movie star. Sean Connery, Honor Blackman, Gert Frobe as Goldfinger. They just jump off the screen. They just do. They just, whenever they're on screen, they resonate. Wrapped up in one of the greatest James Bond movies. There was no way this villain could have failed, and he really is the greatest in my opinion. So let me know your favourite James Bond villain, and let me know your thoughts on my list. I'm going to be doing more James Bond videos in the future. There are several on my channel. A few of them you can click on the screen now. Please consider subscribing to this channel. I talk about retro movies, I talk about James Bond, I talk about all that nostalgic stuff. So please consider subscribing, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.